Welcome to Gaming on a Budget. Today we'll be covering Claustrophobia from Asmodee Games. Apologies if I pronounced that wrong, but hopefully I did not. Claustrophobia is a tactical miniatures game for exactly 2 players. That's initially what drew my wife and I to it, because most of our plays are with 2, and it's nice every now and again to play a game where 2 players is not a footnote or supported through a dummy player or a host of oddball mechanics or something to that effect. Now, at its heart, Claustrophobia is pure bottled Ameritrash. It is a miniature murder-thon. In fact, when asking a friend what sort of game he wanted to play, that was how I described Claustrophobia to him. It is from beginning to end whomping the crap out of each other. That is what you do. You could completely ignore the storyline if you felt like it. You'd be losing out, but you could and still get an enjoyable experience just out of having these little dudes beat the bejeebers out of each other. Well, these guys aren't going to fight each other. These are all on the same side. Now, the game breaks down into 2 teams. Not teams. 2 sides. The humans, who are attempting to drive back the forces of hell, and the demons, who are attempting to not be driven back.
There's the big demon there next
Oh, yes, the large one. Now, as of this video, Claustrophobia is out of print, but still fairly available on the secondary market for fairly reasonable rates. And I would guess that a reprint is likely incoming, since from what I've heard, there's a second expansion on the way. So it would seem kind of silly to make another expansion without more copies of the base game. So, the gist of the game is that you are going to pick a scenario and set up accordingly, play through your particular objective, and see who wins. What makes Claustrophobia particularly interesting is that the scenarios actually run a fairly decent range of different types of objectives. There, for example, is a mission where the human players have to, or human player, I'm so used to plural. The human player actually has to defend a particular tile and the all-important Redeemer for a series of turns. I believe it's 10 turns. And then there's the standard, whomp each other good. There's, running down passageways as fast as you can, following a faint breeze you sense in the distance. Now, the theme itself is going to be a little bit off-putting to some people because it actually does directly reference hell and demons and all that fun stuff. But, for most gamers, I would imagine the colorful euphemisms often used for hell and demons, we're smart enough to realize what they're referencing, so, if you find that sort of thing offensive, this is not the game for you. There are no colorful euphemisms or demons referred to as, boogans or something, I don't know. But if you're not off-put by that, then there's a lot of fun to be found in this game. One of the more interesting aspects to it, I found, was that the human players start out fairly beefy. You are pretty tough in the beginning parts of the game, but your little character boards here, where you will assign dice to determine your statistics for the round, they become blocked off as you take damage. You take the neat little red pegs here, if I can get any out of the bag.
It's not open.
I see that now. It looks like it was open, but oh darn it. Technical difficulties, folks. I apologize. Well, love it. Christmas. Okay, well there we go. So I'm going to need a new bag, but that's okay. as you take damage, you will assign that damage to the various slots on your character board. Thus, your options become more and more limited as the game plays through, leading to a really, really interesting little effect where at first the human players seem almost overwhelmingly powerful, but as the game progresses, they become weaker and weaker and weaker as the hordes of hell steadily wear them down. It creates a wonderfully tense little thematic atmosphere to the game that I find thoroughly enjoyable. So, I'm not going to get too deep into the rules of the game. It's, there's lots of little, blocking rules and movement rules, and, I could spend a good 30-40 minutes just going through the vagaries of the rules, though this is not a difficult to understand game when you read through the book. So that's what I'm going to recommend you do if you are really, really interested in the exact rules details. What I'm going to do is give you a little bit of kind of the feel of how it plays, just a brief sort of overview. So let's go ahead and cut on over to that. Alright, so we are going to take a quick overview look at the first scenario, the survivors. Now, because it's particularly fun in my opinion, I'm just going to read you the little bit of opening flavor text here. Our numbers, our faith, and our courage combined were not enough to avoid disaster. The cleansing of the underground tunnels has turned into a bloodbath sooner than we had expected. Great numbers of troglodytes roaming the tunnels in packs, backed up by demons, have scattered the mortals sent below, before feasting on the isolated ones. Panic has ruined the hopes of the expedition. Only a handful have managed to survive, guided by the Redeemer. As they wander, lost in the labyrinth, they must try to find their way out, even if this means helping themselves to loot from the bodies of their slaughtered companions. But their enemies grow ever nearer, and although they have already feasted on human flesh, they are still hungry. So, the basic idea behind this scenario is that the human players need to follow a faintly detected scent of fresh air towards the exit. This will be indicated by the black dice here that the human player will place next to an exit from his current tile, and every time he moves the dice to a new tile, he's going to increase the number by 1. When the dice reaches 10, he's found the exit and is ready to escape.
When there are multiple exits on a new tile, the demon player gets to choose where it goes.
Oh, well, my mistake. So the demon player will choose where to place the exit. Okay, so the sequence of the game starts out with the initiative phase for the human player. What the human player will do, unless modified by, the Redeemer's powers or the various item cards and things like that, is he will roll 1 dice per hero he has plus 1. Right? Yeah. So, I roll these dice, and then I can assign them to determine the statistics for the round of each one of my heroes. So let's say I felt the Redeemer should have a little bit of extra combat capability. I'd give him this 2, some extra defense for my tank type with a 6, and a little bit of mid-range statistics for the 2 thief types, the extra movement that they're getting. So I could assign them like so. After that, it's movement and combat. Now, movement is determined by their present statistics, so everyone except for my 2 thief types here, my condemned blade for hires, will have 1 movement point, and these 2 will each have 2 movement points. So, given that the purpose of this particular scenario is to go to lots of rooms to find the exit, I could move this condemned blade for hire here over to explore a room, at which point I will flip over a tile and place it logically. Ugh. That's not good. Well, so I'm not leaving out that door, though since I indicated I was exploring, I have no choice but to go in there. And his second move is going to be to go back into this room. That's really unfortunate.
Is that a treasure box?
It is. The symbols in the corner will have various effects throughout the game, but you know I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. So he's been used for the round, so maybe we'll have this guy do some exploring here. So I will go ahead and try to explore this way. Do you remember if I get to increment the dice for that room?
Yes.
Yeah, I do, don't I? Okay, I thought so. So, but there's nowhere to place it here, so the demon player would get to reassign it. Let's say he puts it over here by this one. And then I'll flip a new tile and add it thusly. So he'd go ahead into it for one of his movement points, and he's feeling particularly courageous, so why don't we do it again? A curve. Let's say the demon player wants me to... No, actually, he wants me to go this way. He's hoping that if a second curve comes up, he can wall me off over here. Backtracking is not good for the humans. The way demon spawning works is, without a special once per scenario power, you can't actually spawn on top of the humans. You have to spawn in empty rooms. So, if my guys, started advancing like so, and he managed to curve us into a dead end, we'd have to backtrack, likely through a horde of demons, which is not good. Okay, so then everybody else joins him. There's nobody to fight. He's over here. Then it becomes the demon player's threat phase. This is essentially the initiative phase for the demon player, except that he plays out a little bit differently. What's going to happen with him is he's going to roll 3 dice. Yeah, it's 3 dice. And assign the results to various places on his threat board here to get himself various things like rolling an extra die of destiny during the next threat phase, which can be very powerful. When you don't have a lot to do on a given turn, adding another dice to the next turn can be very messy in a good way for the demon player. Gain 2 threat points, which are these guys. They're what he spends to spawn his little troglodytes and demons, and various other effects like that. So let's say that, let's see, this one says dice must be either all odd or all even. So I'll get 2 threat points for dice. Let's say that at this point I really just want to be extra strong next turn and gain a whole pile of threat points. I want to get some spawning going on. I got nothing on the board right now. So, with all those threat points, it's 1 per troglodyte? Yes?
Yes.
1 point? Okay. So, I'm going to go ahead and spawn a whole lot of troglodytes.
You can only spawn 3.
Yeah, 3 is the maximum, yes. So by whole lot, I clearly meant 3. I'm kidding. Anyway, so I spent these 3 points here. And let's see, the demon...
It's not that it's the maximum, it's just that that's the only room available to spawn in, and that's the room max. That's not, there's no unexplored entry into that tile.
You're right. So, sorry, folks. My wife plays the demons generally by her choice. In fact, by her insistence. How much is the mega demon to spawn? Is that dependent on the scenario? Anyway, I don't think I'd be able to spawn him yet.
No.
At any rate. So that's his threat phase. Next up is his actual action phase, and unfortunately for me, my heroes are well within range of his ravening troglodyte horde. Now, there are various effects like room sizes and such. Outside of big rooms like this, the limit is 3 per side in a room, which is convenient for the troglodyte player there. in the big rooms like this, I believe it's 5. But so the
Then you could
troglodyte.
have spawned more. And you could have spawned more.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So combat is going to reference the troglodyte statistics. They have a 1 combat, which is kind of unfortunate. Now, there's a lot of circumstances where the demon player can use his special cards to add extra combat dice and guarantee hits and all that sort of stuff. But just as an example, I'm going to go ahead and roll the 3 dice for my 3 troglodytes. Now, since the Condemned Brute, my big old tank type here, has a ton of defense at the moment, I think I'm going to go for... The Redeemer's got a 4. These guys have a 3. Yeah, he's gonna attack Blondie there.
The Brute has a bodyguard effect.
Oh, that's right. But the hit is still based off their defense.
Okay.
So they're basically getting to roll against the Brute with a 3 defense if the Brute decides to take the hits. It's not mandatory. So 3 dice. Got 1 3 and 1 4. So that's 2 hits. And we'll say that the Brute decides to take one of them, and Blondie is left to take the other. So, the human player would pull out 2 of his little red wound pegs and decide where to assign them. Let's say the mid-range for him, and probably the heavily defensive range for him, because you're not going to be trying to do a lot of defending with your rogue. That just wouldn't make sense.
Blondie's not in the room.
Oh, you're right. That's the brunette. Yeah, that's one of my little quibbles with this game, that distinguishing the similar figures is trickier than it needs to be, because the only real difference is very minor little details like hair color.
That is the only difference.
Yeah. So, that should give you a rough feel for how the game's going to play out here. There's a whole lot more to it than this, you know, many abilities I haven't shown you, the cards, the mega demons. These guys are just evil, and they'll be different for each scenario, though the model doesn't change.
Can you rotate him?
Rotate him? Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's pointing right at you. Evil. Anyway. So, yeah, that's the gist of the game right there. It plays quick and simple. So, let's go ahead and get on to the summary. Okay, so, summary for Claustrophobia. Now, first off, component-wise, even with its out-of-print status, you get a lot for what you pay for it, and especially by the prices you would originally and hopefully will soon pay. You get, you know, pre-painted miniatures. Now, my painter wife will be the first to tell you they could have been painted a lot better. In fact, she keeps threatening to repaint them herself. But still, not bad. I mean, definitely better than plain beige, I think we can all agree. You know, and you get quite a few of them, though unfortunately you only have 2 types of demon model. The little troglodytes here, and the single model that represents whatever the major demon for the scenario is.
Fun point though, he is the demon of combat.
Oh yeah, his picture is actually on the Demon of Combat card. But I digress. You know, the humans are a little more varied, though the similar types can be a bit hard to tell apart, you know, until you notice little hair color detail and the like. These things are just, I love these things. These are so cool. The little raised plastic trays and everything with the, you know, display board and all that, where you put the dice, and it feels very satisfying, you know, just plunking that dice in there and going dunk. It feels very fulfilling, like you're really setting up your characters for that round. And, you know, that first moment when you're rolling to see your statistics, you know, especially when you find yourself in one of those situations where, you know, you've got a character who, you know, is just wounded out the wazoo, you know, he's just loaded down, but you desperately need him to do something. And you're sitting there going, oh, please, give me a 3. Give me a 3 or a 6. Give me something. And it's like, yeah, a 6. Woo! I get to move. Because if you're unable to assign them a dice that's not one of their wounded areas, they're crippled for that round. They can move. Can they move at all? No, they combat as if they had a 3, though they can't actually attack. That's just for defending. And yeah, it's very exciting, and the setup is really, really quick and simple. I mean, what you see is what you get. There isn't a ton of rules to memorize. You know, the rule book's maybe 20 pages, which for a miniatures thematic game like this is not bad.
Well, and it includes all of the scenarios.
You're right, all the scenarios are in this book too, and loads of examples and pictures. Now, this is not a Descent or Mage Knight type where you have options coming out the wazoo. Your options are fairly limited. You know, you move and you fight, and the tactical element to it comes from reacting to what's going on and finding that optimal solution, and it's really, really quite satisfying. I've only played the Demon once or twice, but I had a lot of fun doing it. You're really, really, really strategizing with the Demon player because you start out so weak compared to the human, and you're sitting there going, how am I going to wear them down, and then just close the trap and end them.
Well, and since some of your powers are one-time use only, it's definitely resource
you have
management.
the red marked powers are one use only. I mean, that for the entire scenario. So you have some big, big, big weapons at your disposal, but you have to be very careful with them. Now, there are some definite drawbacks to it. The figures are a little cheap, shall we say, but there are sacrifices you have to make to keep the MSRP down. And savings is definitely something we at Gaming on a Budget approve of. And I don't think it's to the extent that, it should really be, I don't want this game, the figures are too cheap kind of deal. They're not top of the line by any stretch of the imagination, but they're not bad. And I absolutely love the tiles. I mean, these things are thick and solid and just gorgeous. I mean, look at the detail on that. It's very, very pretty, and they hold up to a lot of wear. Most games I'm not going to do this with, but these guys, nothing. They are fine, and it's something I really appreciate because tiles are always getting knocked around and bumped into each other, and
Shuffled.
They shuffled, yes. They take an extensive beating, and these ones hold up to it nicely. The little pegs are very cool. It reminds me of Mastermind, if anyone ever played that game. Yeah, so it's really, really solid, but it's 2-player. It's never going to be more than 2-player. It probably shouldn't be less than 2-player. I don't really solo, but I can't imagine this as being a very fun choice solo. It'd be a little like playing chess solo, But it's really, really a lot of fun. The question is, do you enjoy a pure, unadulterated, thematic murder-thon? Because that is what you're getting. If the answer is no or maybe, at the very least, wait for the reprint, instead of paying on the secondary market. If the answer is yes, yes, absolutely, then by all means get it. It's not that bad for an out-of-print game, price-wise. So, questions, comments, feedback, hurled insults, bricks, whatever you got, feel free to post away. I hope this was helpful / relevant in some way, and have fun, get off the computer, go play some games.